back in the spring of 2025, I released this book, Shadow Dragon, the first book in the Dread Queen's War. I am now nearing the end of the edits on the second book, Dragon Flame, but this really is only the beginning of the process. I always knew this was going to be a big epic fantasy series. I went into writing it with that intention, and right now it is very much looking like it is going to be 10 books long. So today I wanted to talk about how I am approaching the writing of this mammoth series whilst trying not to burn out. It has been a bit of a rocky road so far, and if I'm honest, I have almost burnt out a couple of times before. I finished the first draft of Shadow Dragon in the summer of 2024, and I was in a real hurry to get the book out. From drafting, I dived straight into editing, and my plan was to edit through the autumn and winter and probably to release at the end of 2024. That absolutely did not happen. Going straight from the drafting of such a big book, and I had written the second half pretty fast, into editing was a disaster. I was really just too tired and overwhelmed to do the project justice. I had a period of about 6 weeks where I hardly wrote anything at all. I didn't read, I didn't game. Really, the only thing I could find the energy to do was listen to a lot of music and stare into space, and that is not like me at all. Once I had worked my way through that and got back to editing Shadow Dragon, it took me maybe another 6 months to get it released, and then, if I'm honest, I made the same mistake again. Even before Shadow Dragon had come out, I jumped straight into the drafting of book 2, Dragon Flame. I did feel more prepared this time. I was enjoying the process, but I made it through the first half of the first draft before I once again discovered I desperately needed a break. This time it was a more productive break. I took 4 months off and completely drafted, edited and released an unrelated book. This is Wild Home, a cozy quest fantasy that came out at the end of last year. But ever since that release, I have been hard at work on Dragon Flame again. And as I get towards the end of that process, I have been reflecting on the toll it has taken on me and what I need to do differently. A bit of readjustment has been in order because I am in this for the long run and I do want to make it to the end of the series. So I've got my cup of tea. Let's get into what I am doing to make this process work. I think a big part of being able to write this big series does come down to experience, which maybe isn't what you want to hear if you are about to embark on this process and you haven't been writing for very long, because I think my publishing experience is helping me here. I have been indie publishing for more than 10 years. I have been writing for more than 20. I know how my process works. I know that I can start and finish books and see them through to publication. And that isn't, of course, a guarantee that I am going to make it to the end of a 10-book series. I do know this is going to take a lot out of me regardless. But on the tough days, I can fall back on the knowledge that I have done this before. I know how to write a book. And to be honest, on some of my toughest days, that is the only thing that has kept me going. Discipline, habit, having done this before. But there is a second type of experience that has been really useful to me and may also be useful to you even if you are relatively new to writing. And that is my experience with the fantasy genre and my love for the world I have created as part of that. Now, I have been reading and writing fantasy for a really long time. One of the first books I really remember being obsessed with was The Lord of the Rings. My mum had a 1970s special edition of the book, and I was trying to read it when I was 7. So this love for the genre has just really been with me for my entire life. And that has translated into true passion for the fantasy world I have created. Now, Eterna, or the Eternal World, came out of my desire to write some more traditional epic fantasy. What I didn't expect when I first developed it was that it was going to consume my entire writing life. I had dozens of separate fantasy projects on the back burner in notes, but what I realised as I developed Eterna was that all of these projects, one way or another, could be moved into this world. So it is a setting that has grown and grown and grown. I have published another series, Moon Ruin Saga, in the same setting in a different time period. Shadow Dragon and the rest of the Dread Queen's War cover a really pivotal period in the history of this world. And I have so many other books and series that I want to write that tell more history, that cover more characters who might come and go through different series. But I have really had to lean on my love of the fantasy genre and my passion for this world I have created. On the really tough days when I just do not want to touch my stories, I do sometimes remember that these are books I desperately want to write. This is a world I love. I am so passionate about all the time and effort I have put into it, and one way or another I do want to see these stories out in the world. Nothing about this series has really been written to market. I have tried to chase the publishing market in the past and honestly not been particularly successful. Everything that has come out of Eterna is really just of my heart. It is what I love to read, it is what I love to write, and that has really kept me going. And I have particularly found this true in the drafting of Dragon Flame. Writing sequels is tricky, and I have always found writing the second book in a series hardest of all. I'm sure I'm not the only writer to say that either. What I decided when I was struggling with the first draft of Dragon Flame was that I really just needed to lean into anything I thought was cool and fun, anything I felt drawn to write that I was excited about. Sometimes that did not fit into my original plan for the book, but it made the writing process so much more interesting. And I have continued to develop the plot and world building and the entire setting of Eterna as I have gone along. That has also made me really excited to continue with the series. There is so much coming up that I cannot wait to work on. When I look through all the stories I want to tell, all the incredible scenes I have in mind, and the characters and the places, it really does fire me up to keep going. And I am hoping that is going to draw me through the creation of this entire series. But I will say I am not just relying on passion and experience alone. There are some practical steps I have taken to help me through the writing of the Dread Queen's War. First of all, I have forced myself to slow down. Now, I am a fairly fast writer, but I have found in the last few years that I have been focusing too much on the destination rather than the journey. Some of the books I have written have just felt like a race to get to the end of the book and get it published. And that is the opposite of the approach I want to take with the Dread Queen's War. I have been really taking my time, particularly with Dragon Flame so far. I am digging deeper into the world and the story, as I said, because that does help with my excitement for continuing to work on it. But that has also allowed me to improve my organisation. I have really needed that extra time to plan the world, to plan where the story is going, to keep track of the many characters and plot threads. I have never organised a series to this degree before, but I really felt I needed to do it this time. And it just does take time. And this has also translated into the physical books themselves. I spent much longer on, for example, the paperback and ebook formatting this time round. Shadow Dragon is the first book I have ever produced with a map and with interior chapter art. Having that produced did slow down the release. but I really wanted to make the physical book something I was proud of, and I want to continue that across the whole series. I don't want to get to book 6 or 7 and to be looking back at the early books and to hate them. I'm really proud of the story and how much time and effort I have put into it, and I need the books themselves to reflect that. There is much more artwork to come, loads more maps. I am looking into doing hardback editions, which again is not something I've ever done before, but it is all exciting and I really feel like it is helping to buoy me up when I'm struggling with the series, and it will hopefully get readers more excited too. But on that note, because I have slowed down the writing process, I have had to be very honest with my readers. I really wanted Dragon Flame to come out a year after Shadow Dragon. I have said that in previous videos. When it became very clear that was not going to happen, I decided the best thing to do was just be honest with my readers and to send regular newsletter updates to let them know what I'm doing. Every month I am detailing how much work I have got done. Having to report what I have done does give me the impetus to make sure I have done plenty of work over the course of a month, but also I think I am proving to myself that I am making progress. That is as important as reporting on my progress to my readers. Now, in the vein of slowing down, I have also had to cut back on some of my other writing projects. Now, this is a hard one for me because I love to have loads of different things on the go. There are always so many books bubbling in the back of my mind, and I regularly make these timelines where I work out how quickly I am going to be able to write and publish books. If I am honest, none of them ever come to fruition, but I like to tell myself it is possible. With the Dread Queen's War though, I have had to be a bit more honest with myself. Dragon Flame, for example, has grown and grown in the telling, which, to be honest, I should have foreseen. Shadow Dragon is about 140,000 words long. I expect Dragon Flame will be about 180,000 words. It is by far the biggest thing I have ever written, and I cannot be writing other books at the same time as I am working on this epic fantasy. There will always be those other books in the back of my head. I will keep outlining them and tinkering with them whilst I'm writing the Dread Queen's War, but I've had to say goodbye to the really ambitious schedules and timescales, and be honest about how many projects I can reasonably keep up with at once. Having said that, the dedication to one series has actually made me love the Dread Queen's War even more. I do remember being told back at uni when we were getting ready to write our undergrad dissertations that the more niche and specialised your subject for a dissertation is, and the more specific, the more you will find to write about it. And to be honest, I have found that to be true. Dedicating myself to one series has really allowed me to go deeper into the story and the world, and it has just made me more excited about what is to come. And my final point is that I have allowed myself to enjoy other interests outside writing for once. I made a video recently about the dearth of hobbies that I have had in the past few years, and that is something I have been trying really hard to change. I have been trying my hand at new things like watercolour painting. I am making these videos again. I have a second YouTube channel which is related to gaming, which has been so much fun. I am reading loads more than I was before. I'm working out more, and all of this has really served to refill the creative well, which I really do think will help the writing process in the long run. And making videos particularly does give me a sense of completion, which I love. Obviously, I'm not finishing books very quickly because I am in this for the long haul, but with a YouTube video, I can film it, edit, and release in the span of a week, and there is such a sense of accomplishment in being able to do that. So I am still in the very early stages of writing this series. I am sitting here with Shadow Dragon, which is about 600 pages long, and I am planning to produce 9 more of these in the series, probably all of them longer than this one. There is a time where that would have filled me with dread because I often don't like to be tied down to one series for long, but the Dread Queen's War has just been so incredibly different for me for all of these reasons that I've detailed. I am so passionate about it, I am taking my time with it, and it really feels like the culmination of all the writing and reading I have done for the last 20 or 30 years. So much of me is going into this series. And instead of being intimidated by the fact that I have 9 more books to release, I am instead incredibly excited by that fact. So if you are looking to write a fantasy epic of your own, I hope some of that was helpful. I would love to know your thoughts on writing long series down in the comments. For all the points I have detailed here today, this is still uncharted territory for me. I have never written books this long before, and I have never written a series of more than 4 books. So this is certainly going to be a journey, and I know there will be a lot more to explore along the way. So thank you very much for being here. Keep writing, everyone, and I will see you next time.